Here we go. Let's get ready for Unit 4 test. This is a preview. Alright, here we go. It says the table shows the relationship between temperature and slushy sales. Alright, so the question is, assuming the data is described by a linear model, that's important, how many dollars would be expected on a day with a temperature 105? If I see a table, I'm going to do a regression to get an equation which will extend my table and I can answer the question. So the first thing that I need to do is I need to take my calculator and I need to press what button? I need to press the stat button and I need to enter my data. So pause the video right now and enter your data. Alrighty, so what would we do next? We need to now ask the calculator to calculate. So I will go back and hit my stat button and arrow to the right. Okay, which one am I going to pick? It's the one that says line. Okay, see if you can answer the question from here. Alright, we keep going down here until we're going to store the regression because we need the equation to be put automatically into our y equal. So what we're going to do now is we're going to hit alpha, trace, pop-up window, we're going to go to y1, see a y1 right there, we keep pressing enter. The equation is now on our screen, whoop-de-doo, we need it to be right here, but if we press that, we can see that it's been transferred there. And now that we have an equation, we can do our table, which is second graph. Now, I need to be at where 107. Right now I'm at 0. I don't feel like scrolling. So I'm going to go to my second window and I'm going to tell it to start at, I don't know, 107 maybe. And I hit that and I'm going to say, oh, there's the answer, about $721. $721 and some change, 53 cents to be exact. Next question. Alright, given we have a function, it's linear. This right here, you need to realize that that's just an ordered pair. 8 is my input or x and 1 is my output or y. So that is just the ordered pair 8, 1. And we have a slope, which is m of 3/4. What is the equation in standard form? Standard form is where the x's and the y's are on the same side. A needs to be positive. So where do we get started? That's right. The point slope formula will help us get started, and then we'll just simply shuffle things around to get it here. Alright, so your point slope is y minus another y. My y is 1. It's equal to my slope, which is 3/4. And then we'll do x minus another x, and my x is 8. I'll distribute. I get 3/4 x. 3/4 of 8 is 6. Okay. And we need the x's and the y's to be on the same side. Okay, we need our x coefficient, the number in front of x, to be positive. It's positive where it's at. So I'm going to keep this guy right here and I'm going to move the y. How do I get y to the other side? That's right, I'm going to subtract y from both sides. And I'm going to rewrite it because things are getting a little cloudy. Y equals 3/4 x minus my y minus my 6. So in standard form, the x and the y term are on the same side. The number in front of x is positive. I got that, but this doesn't have an x or y, so I need to zero that out. So I need to do what? I need to add 6. What I do to one side, I do to the other, and I get 5 is equal to 3/4 x minus y. It's just written on opposite sides, but I've got 3/4 x minus y equals 5. Let's go with C. Next question. Ethan graphed the following. Okay, Remember, f of x is just y, so we could pick up our calculator. So if we do that, clear out our calculator, what's the equation? Okay, so we have an equation. What does an equation let us do? Well, it lets us graph it. We can get a visualization. Remember a zero, what is a zero? What's that another name for? Zero is the x-axis or x-intercept. That looks like a -2. How can we check? Well, we can go to our table. We can do second graph and see if I'm back over here. How do I get back to near zero? All right, zero table set or second table set. Let's go back to zero. And okay, this is familiar territory. We said that our x was -2. Oh, it is. Hey, there it is right there. Okay. Now, another way that we can do that is to do it algebraically. Remember that if you are on the x-axis, your y is 0. So if I have an equation, I can simply take that equation, and wherever I see a y, I can put a 0, and I can solve for x. So solving for x, I'll simply add 4 to both sides. There's a 0 pair, and then I make a 1 by dividing by the coefficient. And guess what? 4 divided by -2 is a -2. Alright, what's next? What are we doing here? What do we got? Trigger words: parallel, perpendicular, 0, undefined slope. Write the slope-intercept form of the line that goes through this and is parallel. Alright, so what do you know about the slopes of parallel lines? They are the same. So if I come over here and I do a slope triangle, if I do a rise and a run, hopefully you know that this slope is negative. I go up a +5 and I go left 4. So my rise is positive, my run is negative, so my slope is going to be a -5/4 collectively. Okay? So now I'm going to use the same slope, so I don't have to mess with this. I'm going to use the same slope as this guy, but I want to go through this point. I have a point and a slope. I have a point and a slope. Oh, about the point slope formula. Alright, here we go. Y minus my y value is a -5. Now remember, y minus a -5, let's clean that up to y plus 5, is equal to my slope, which is a -5/4, times the group of my x's, which is x minus a -4. Minus a -4 is adding a +4. So I'm going to clean that up so it looks like this. And all I got to do now is distribute and solve for y. So I'm going to multiply a -5/4 times x. 5/4 times 4 is going to positive times a negative is a negative, and that's going to be 5. Bring the other stuff down, and now the only thing I need to do is zero that out. So y is equal to -5/4 x, and that's going to be a negative. It doesn't zero out just because I circled it. That means that they're like terms. Alright, let's go with C. Alright, from the left to the right, that's domain. Alright, assuming each of these little things is 1, I count over to the left. 1, 2, 3, 4. I got a closed dot, so my low number is a -4. It's closed. I'll be equal to, less than or equal to. The letter for domain is x, another less than. From the left to the right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, with a closed dot at 7, so I'm going to be equal there. There's your domain. 3 parts, low, middle, high, just like the little hint tells us. From the bottom to the top, that's range. Now stop. The bottom is going to be a -2. I know that's hard to see, but just count the little tick marks. That's still a closed dot, so it's less than or equal to. The letter for range is y. The top is way up here. That's going to be 8 plus 1 more is 9, and it's closed. And there's your range. Number 6, the y-intercept. I just need for you to think if you are on the y-axis, if you're anywhere on the y-axis, that's on the y-axis, that's on the y-axis, that's on the y-axis. What do they all have in common? They all have a 0 for an x. So the 0 for the x means that that's the y-intercept. This would be 0, -4. Don't fall for this one. This one's on the x-axis. All right. Two legs of a right triangle meet perpendicularly. What do you know about perpendicular lines and their slopes? Hopefully you know that the slopes are going to be opposite signs, and they're going to be reciprocals of each other. That means you're going to be able to flip one and get the other. Opposite reciprocals, both of these qualifications. Okay? So, if I take my line right here, it's in slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b. So y equals -x plus 2. What's my number? What's my m? Well, you got to realize that my m is actually a -1. Okay. So am I going to use a -1 as a slope? No, I've got to use the opposite reciprocal. Okay. So if I want the opposite of -1, I'm going to use a positive. Opposite of negative is positive. Okay, so I got the opposite. And the reciprocal, the good news is the reciprocal of 1 is 1. Okay, so in this particular case, this is the slope I'm going to use. So if I take a look, these are all in point slope. This has a slope of 1/2. No, I don't want that. This has a slope of 1/2. No, doesn't have that. So it's between these two guys right here because they have a 1, an understood 1 in front of the parentheses. So it's either B or D. So let's put it in our point slope. Y minus, what's my y value? It's 5. We could stop right there because the only one that has a y minus 5 out of B and D is going to be B. That's the one we want. It's equal to 1. X minus a -3, we know that minus a negative is adding a positive, so that verifies that it's B. Alright, we're at the equation of a line that's parallel to the y-axis. Okay, so let's get a picture of this. If we're going to be parallel to the y-axis, parallel means that it's going to look something like this, and my line is going to be something like that. See these two right here? They're parallel. Why? So it's going to be Hoy or Vux. Alright, it's Vux. Alright, so the equation is going to start with, x. It's going to equal a number. The only x value I have is -2. And according to Vux, my slope is undefined. Alright. Next problem. Given this, find x whenever h of x is equal to -3.5. Now, if we grab our calculator on this problem, we're going to run into a little issue. Let's see what we have. Because we have an equation, we can put it in our calculator. So let's do that. Let's do 2/3, and then what do we have? X minus 9. And we go to our table, and we're looking for what? Is this an X or a Y? An input or an output? Well, this is my input. That's my X. So this has to be a Y. This has to be an output. And if you notice right here, I don't see a -3.5. I get close. All right. So when that happens, what we need to do is we need to actually put the calculator away and do something, oh, I don't know, by hand. So right here, if this is my output, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that and I'm going to put it in, substitute it in right here. So I get this equation, a negative 3.5 is equal to 2/3 quantity x minus 9. So I need to solve this thing for x. Okay, we should be able to do that. We're going to distribute the 2/3. 2/3 of 9 is 6. Positive times a negative is negative. Okay. And what we'll do here is we will get x by itself. So we need to zero out something that doesn't have a 6. What I do to one side, I do to the other. So if I add those two together, use a calculator if you need to, that's 2.5. Okay. And now how do I get rid of a fractional coefficient? And multiply by the reciprocal, which is 3/2. And what I do to one side, I do to the other. And your calculator can handle something like that. Remember, this is going to be equal to 1. So I've made zeros and ones, okay, just like always. So I can go here and pick up my calculator, and I can do 3 divided by 2 times 2.5. And that's going to give me 3.75. Okay. So let me say that x is 3.7. If you want to check that, here's what you do. Go back up to your table set, second window, and start at your answer. Start at 3.7. Type that in. 3.75. Go to your table, and now does 3.75 produce a negative 3.5? The answer is yes. So we know our answer is right. All right. Which of the following have equal slope? I'll look for things that are solved for y. That's solved for y. This is point slope, so the slope's in the middle. These two aren't the same, so 2 and 3 can't be the same. This one is not solved for y. It's solved for x. So if I multiply by the reciprocal, I get y is equal to 2/3 x. Well, that's not the same. Over here, oh my goodness, I'm going to have to solve for y. So I'm going to subtract 3x from both sides. I get a negative 2y. Don't forget your sign in front. And I'll divide by negative 2. And what's a negative divided by a negative? That's a positive. This one has a slope of 3/2, which matches this one right here. So 2 and 4 are the same, and that's going to be C. All right, the last two problems we really haven't talked about in class, so they're kind of like mini lessons, but I think you guys are going to be able to get this, okay? The first thing is going to be causation versus association. Now, whenever you're dealing with these two, a causation is if one thing happens, the other has to happen. I mean, there's 100% never a doubt. Okay? One will always make the other. An association is, well, you know, it could be related. It might be related. It makes a lot of sense. I could see it happening, but there's always doubt. So as we go through these problems, and we're asking for the causation, which one will always cause the other to happen? Okay, not just sometimes. Go ahead and give it a shot. Try to answer this. All right, the first one, rain causes clouds. Have you ever been out on a day where you saw lots of fluffy clouds but it wasn't raining? Yeah, me too. So, rain is not always going to cause the clouds. The clouds can be there without raining. Birthdays cause people to age. Well, today's not my birthday, but I know that I'm one day older than the day before. So my birthday didn't cause me to age. So it can't be that one. Snow causes Christmas. Well, we live in Texas, and the majority of my Christmases here have not had snow. So I know that, you know, I've had Christmas every year, so that one doesn't work as well. Now, if you skip a meal, or 2, or 3, are you going to get hungry? I would, every time. because food is essential for our health. And so this one is going to be the causation. All right. So on these problems right here, just think for common sense and pick the one where one always causes the other. Not some of the time, not partially, but it could happen. Yeah, okay. But one that will always work, and you'll do fine. All right, the last one right here is dealing with another topic we really haven't spent a lot of time in this talk about, association. Okay, we're going to let our calculator do that. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a regression, because anytime we see a table, we're going to do a regression. Okay, sometimes we can look at the picture and we can ask ourselves, hey, if I were to draw a line through these points like this, is this a positive or negative slope? Hopefully you can say negative. You see, the points are going down. And so if that's the case, I can eliminate answer C, because this one says positive. Association deals with slope as well. Okay? So we're going to get rid of C because it's not positive slope, it's a negative. Okay? Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to pick up our calculator, we're going to do a regression. Okay? So we do a regression, same thing, we got all the points already in. Make sure we do that. We're going to do our stat, we're going to do our calc, we're going to do our or linear regression. We don't have to store the equation because we're not extending the problem. And now, what we're looking for the association is we're looking for what's known as an R value. So on this screen, we need to have R's showing up. Now, I don't have any. Here's how you get your R value to show up. I want you to press second, and I want you to press 0. And you should have a catalog screen. Again, that was second, 0. And we're going to scroll down, not too far. We're going to get to the D's. And we're going to do diagnostic on. Diagnostic on. We're going to press enter, and we're going to press enter again until it says we're done. Now we're going to go back and do a regression again. We're going to do our stat, calc, we're going to press equals, and there we go. We're not looking at R squared. We're looking at the very bottom, the R. That means that we have a negative association, and that makes sense. We have a negative slope, and it's really close to -1. That means it's very strong. So if we look at our answer choices, we can see that choice A, negative 0.984, is what we want. Okay? So in associations, the R value is very limited. It either goes from a +1 to a -1. If you're at either extreme, left or right, it's considered strong. The closer you are to either the -1 or the +1, it's strong. The closer you are to 0 means that it's weak. And your teacher can talk to you more about that. Good luck.